Hey guys, Ethan here again, back for the second video on my channel. If you watched the last video, you'll know that currently I'm right in the middle of filming that. I am tearing apart and rebuilding this C200 diff from an MQ Patrol right here. In the last video, I took it all apart and I will have put it all back together as well. Those of you who watched the last video will recognize the setting that I'm in right now. I'm right in the middle of filming that. I just left off the last video and I'm starting this one now. So in this video, I'm going to remove the diff center out of here. I'm going to remove the center. I'm going to take it over to the bench over there. And I'm going to install a four-wheel drive systems LOKKA. Why am I going with a LOKKA and not something like an ARB or a Harrop or even a Detroit Auto LOKKA? Cost. I'm broke, okay? Don't judge me. I'm sure a lot of people will relate to that. I don't have a lot of money. That, for the price that it is, that's a really good deal. I got that for about $480, which is, compared to pretty much any other LOKKA, that's an insanely good price. It's not a manual LOKKA, obviously. It's an auto LOKKA. I can't choose when it's on or off. But it's a LOKKA. It'll stop me putting one wheel in the air, spinning really fast, hitting the ground, breaking a CV. And it'll also allow me to go up things where, you know, I've got a wheel in the air, or two wheels in the air even, seesawing. I'll be able to get through that because I'll always have a front wheel which is getting power. Alright, so first thing you notice, it's probably not the first thing you notice, but yes, my pieces do have a very small amount of surface rust on them. Reason for that is these have been sitting at my house for a fair while now, like a good month or two, just sitting in my room basically. So they've been exposed to the air. Surface rust is not a worry. You do not have to worry about that at all. When it's just, I'll show you here, if it's just a very small amount like that, absolutely not an issue. I'm not concerned by that at all. I'm just going to put it in as is. Throwing away trick's probably getting a bit old now, isn't it? Alright, time to take these out now. These are done up very tight. I don't know how easy it's going to be for me to undo them. I don't have a rattle gun handy, so maybe do this, maybe don't. Do what I do at your own risk. My version of a rattle gun is a breaker bar and a hammer. Yeah. So I'm going to get to undoing these, and I will probably do as a time lapse. You'll see when I'm done. Alright, I'm at the part now where I needed a clean rag to clean off my hands because this is important. Can't get dirt in here. I've rotated the axle so that it's facing upwards. Now that I've loosened the bearing caps with the poor man's rattle gun, I'm now going to remove the bearing caps and put them somewhere where they won't get dirt on them. It is now a new day. I ran out of time yesterday, again. I don't have much time to do this during the days, and people always say it takes longer when you're filming. It does. I'm at the point of obviously taking the diff out, but I tried just lifting it out. Obviously, it's pressed into the carrier pretty well, so I'm going to need to gently lift it out. Lever it out. I'm going to need to gently lever it out. I put a rag over it last night so it wouldn't get dirt in it, but still there as is. As you can see, the bearing caps are off. There's one, there's two. Those are the bearings right there. That's what the diff rolls on, basically. You know, if I can make it, yeah, spins as it should. Shouldn't have any dirt in it. Just need to find a way to get it out.
A few moments later.
I've got the differential center out of the housing carrier. You can see there, this is empty now. There's only a pinion and some bearing races in there. It's over here now on the bench in the vise, as it should be. That right there is the whole differential. As you can see inside there, those inside are the spider gears. Those are what we're replacing. So as the differential spins around, different to a normal manual locker, and probably even different to some auto lockers. Alright, as you saw in that time lapse, I now have the ring gear off of the carrier. It did kind of just fall off. I didn't tap it off, but that's fine because it fell straight onto the rag. That's good. I have marked it. I'll see if I can find it. There we go. I have marked it in black pen because I don't have any white pen. So that when I put it back on, I can put it back in the same orientation. So now that I've got this off, I'm going to take out the center pin and get the spider gears out, and I'll get on to installing the locker. I just had a bit of a mishap that's cost me about 2 hours. Sorry, I'm not feeling greatest. If you didn't see in the time lapse, I spent a little while trying to get the pin in the center out. I didn't actually know how that worked until a little while ago. Apparently, to get the big pin out, there's a little pin that goes in through the top. You can just see through the hole through there. It's not there now, but it was, and I didn't know that. So I did some research, found it was there, and then I didn't have anything that could get it out. This is it here. It's pretty small. You know, it's actually hollow as well. And I didn't have anything that was big enough to get it out and small enough to not go... big enough to get it out, small enough that it would go through that hole. And the first thing I found that kind of fitted, not very smart, was this file right here. It is just about the right size. It doesn't really fit now, but it's like so close, and the end of it apparently was slightly smaller than the rest. I started hammering it in, and whoa, can't get it out. So once I got panicked and couldn't get the thing out, I decided that this pin here that goes in here can only come out one way. It can only come out the bottom. It can't come back out the top. So I was like, well, I guess at this point I kind of have to just hammer both the end. Like, I'd snapped a bit of the end of the file off, so it was just a bit of file in there, and then there was the pin underneath, and I kind of had made the choice that I kind of had to just get both out that way. And it took me a good couple hours, a bit of tears and some I'm never getting this done. Eventually I decided to just modify a file, not a file, sorry, this is a hole punch. I just took it to the grinder and made it smaller. Made it small enough that it went in there nicely, so that goes in there now. It only goes in that far. Once I got it in that far, it started to come a bit looser, because that hole's tapered, so the further you push the pin in, the tighter it gets. So the further you push the pin out, the looser it gets. Eventually it started to get a bit looser. Once that hole punch couldn't reach anymore, I could just use a screw like that and hammer it out. But yeah, so that's out now. Advice, if you're gonna do this, get a hole punch that's the right size, because I seriously thought that I had ruined this carrier by putting that piece of file in there. That was a really dumb idea. Don't do that. Anyway. Bit of an update. I've been working at this for a little while, trying to figure out how it all goes together. The instructions are good, but they don't have quite the right pictures and stuff. It's all words, and it sometimes can be kind of hard to decipher what they're trying to say. I've got this far, so I have the actual locker itself just sitting inside there. I haven't measured the tolerances or anything like that yet. It's just sitting inside there. I have the pin in the side temporarily. See, I can push it, if I can find the other side, I can still push it out and in because it's not in there properly. I'm much happier now. I didn't film the entire putting together the diff because, man, it's hard and fiddly. It's not actually that difficult in theory, but in practice, it's just fiddly. Like, there's so much stuff that you have to hold on to while putting something else there. It'd be really hard to film. Anyway, I'm at the point now where the locker is in the diff. I actually have got the pin back in, and I have the dowel pin, or whatever it's called, hammered back in. As you can see, the springs are in, so these two halves here are now being forced apart, right, into the outside gears. So on a normal operation, those two halves are forced apart and the whole thing spins as one. Spins both the axles, everything spins as one piece. And then obviously when one of these being pressed one way or the other, when one becomes loose, this trying to spin will pull this back in this way because these have angled teeth on them. And obviously, if you've got two angled pieces like this, and one's trying to move this way, it's going to push the other one away. So, as it tries to spin, it'll pull this back in this way, and it'll be able to spin. Unless these are being pushed out by the pin. So, one thing is that you need to put, see how with the springs, you probably can't see, there's a little, wrong side, there's a little, I guess, dowel, oh god, camera rotate. In between these two, you've got a spring and a little dowel as well, so the dowel is actually inside this half. It's about, I don't know, that far in, I guess. You need to put those dowels into each half. That one goes into this half, and this one here goes into this half, and it's the same on the other side. You need to put those dowels in before you put the whole thing together, because those dowels don't fit into these spring grooves, so you can't after you put it together slide it in there. It doesn't fit. You need to put it in there, put it all together, and then put the springs in with the dowels already in there. But once you've done that, like I said, these two halves have been forced outwards. It's a locker. Alright, it's time to put the ring gear back on the diff. And the way that I've decided to do this is I'm going to sit this here, line up my, if I can find it, my line. You can see my black line there on the ring gear, with my line on the carrier, obviously, which is right there. You probably can't see it, but it is right there. I'm pretty sure that's mine. Actually, let me have a quick look. Yeah, so I'm going to line up these two lines, and once they're lined up, I'll put like 2 bolts in, I guess. Once I've got 2 bolts in, I'm going to put it over on the vise, which is over there, and we can put the rest in and tighten them up. You can probably see me now. So I'm going to line these 2 lines up so that the bolt holes meet properly. Actually, let me clean this off first. So probably a good idea to clean off the surface before you put it on, so there's no dirt or anything caught in between, because that will just throw everything off. I've already cleaned this surface, so I know it's clean. Now, that goes on there, just like that, and it should go on a little bit tight. That's alright. Alright, so before we put the bolts in, we obviously need to put some Loctite on them, which I have right here. This is not actually the branded Loctite. This is called Thread LOKKA by Permatex. It's the same thing. Look, if you're going to buy a thread locker, it doesn't matter if you get Loctite, Permatex, any other brand. They all will do a similar, if not the same job. So it really doesn't matter which one you get. Preferably, I guess get a reputable brand. But look, whatever you can get is probably fine. So you just put a little tiny drop like that. That should be enough right there. You know what? I'll put 2 just in case. 1 there. I'll put 1 on the other side. It'll spread around the thread, so it doesn't really matter. And once you've got that in, I'm going to put it up through the bottom and start threading it in. There we go. And I'll do the one on the opposite side as well, just to hold the ring gear on when we turn it upside down in the vise. It's the only reason I'm doing this, otherwise I would just leave it. Just grab a random one, because it doesn't really matter. Bam, bam, and in it goes. Thread it in a bit, whoops, missed that. Thread it in a bit, and that's pretty much good. Alright, now I'll face you up towards the vise a bit better. Over there. That's the vise right there. I'll lift this up, turn it over. Hopefully our ring gear doesn't fall off. Alright, slide this in. You can see I've got a rag down the bottom. That's just to protect the bearing. Don't want to destroy these bearings because I don't want to have to replace them, basically. Simple as that. Tighten this up. You really got to do this up nice and tight because these bolts get torqued to a fairly high spec. It's not unbelievably high, but it's not like, you know, your standard body bolt that holds your guards on or anything like that. These need to be pretty tight. So this is not, unlike the rest of my tools, the torque wrench is not my breaker bar. This is just going to be me tightening this up so that the ring gear actually stays where it's meant to stay. This is the torque wrench I'll be using. It's a King Chrome, just a, you know, King Chrome, pretty generic torque wrench. It's got foot-pounds on this side and Newton meters on this side. These apparently need to be torqued down to 58 foot-pounds. Now to torque these up, it's pretty simple. You're just tightening things, right? So, first one. Clicks. Second one on the opposite side. Clicks. Now you go back to the other side and then one over. Clicks. Same again, opposite side. And that's how you're going to do all of these bolts. Once you get back to where you started, you'll actually be on the opposite side, but it'll be the same row as where you started. One more time, just to make sure they are all torqued to spec, because as you tighten up one, another one obviously seems to get looser, because as something gets compressed, the ones that are here will get looser. That was a bad explanation. Anyway, do it one more time. Bam, I actually did the first ones again for some reason. These are now all torqued, and I can now take this complete diff with a LOKKA and put it back in the housing. That'll be the last thing I do in this video. We'll be reinstalling this diff in the housing, retorquing the bearing caps, doing all that, and obviously you've already seen in my last video me putting the axle all back together. So, I need to get the diff into the housing. I need to have each of these bearing races on the bearings that you can't see. On the bearings. And it all needs to fit together. And I'm filming this as I do it, so I don't even know what I'm going to do here. Alright. Let me just sit down properly again. Those are basically in now. In my, again, very backyard DIY, don't do it this way. Maybe that is how you're supposed to do it, I don't really know. I can feel that the backlash, I haven't obviously tightened up the bearing caps or even put the bearing caps on yet, but I can feel that it's somewhere in the right vicinity. Like there's, you know, it doesn't move much. It shouldn't move much. Yeah. As far as I know, backlash is a pretty complicated thing, which is why I'm not going to mess with it, which is why I'm not going to mess with it. So, instead, I'm just going to put the bearing caps on, torque them to spec, and we'll be pretty much done. Put the diff cover back on. I won't fill it up with oil yet, because obviously I don't have the axles in or anything like that. But yeah, let's get these bearing caps on. According to ARB, who was the best resource I could find quickly, the bearing cap bolts have a torque spec of 69 Newton meters. So, I'm going to grab this one first of all, and you should be able to see, I have my marking up here. You can't actually really see it on camera, but my marking is there. That's this one, goes up this way. I'll make sure there's no dirt in there, and if there is, which there isn't really, but I'll wipe it off with a rag anyway, so just give this a quick wipe off. Make sure it's all nice and clean. Good. Stick it on the bearing race, just like that. Now we should be able to put the two bolts in, and we won't torque it yet, we'll just tighten it just gently till we've got the other side on as well. So So I've got my 17mm socket here. This needs to be at 69 foot-pounds, so we'll go up to 60, which is there. You can't actually see that. 60. So we've got 60, and that's 9, so we'll keep going until we get to 8, and then 9, 69 foot-pounds, done. Tighten it up again, tighten the back end, done. Now, I'm not going to torque them straight away. I'm actually going to go a little bit on one, then a little bit on another, and then back and forth, simply because these bearing caps do need to be tightened evenly. Alright, that's torqued. That's torqued. Alright. One side's torqued. Make sure it's good. Awesome. Bearing caps are now torqued. That feels really good. Feels like it's got exactly the same resistance as it had before. There's still a tiny little bit of backlash, as they should be. That all is good. I may or may not check the gear mesh with paint. I don't think I will. There's not a whole lot of point because I'm not going to be resetting it even if it is bad. I don't have the tools to do that, so there's not really any point in me checking it. But yeah, as you can see, the LOKKA's in there. And so yeah, I'm going to get to putting this cover plate on. So it's there. Cool. That can just go on. And put in a couple of bolts, because, you know, need to hold it there. So, now that I'm doing this video, I'm going to go back to doing my axle disassembly, reassembly video, which, again, you've already seen, probably, if you saw that video. If not, I don't know, go and watch it, I guess. I'm terrible at this. Yeah, I'm going to leave it here. I will catch you guys next time. See ya.